Are you an entrepreneur or ready to become a boss? Welcome to Hawaii Boss, the business podcast made in Hawaii, where you will hear from island movers and shakers on who they are and their impact on our state. And now, step into the office of your host for Hawaii Boss, David Pettijohn.
Aloha, Hawaii Boss Podcast crew listening in out there, wherever you're at. Another wonderful Thursday morning. This is coming out to see you. Challenge today, accepted. Listen, there's a lot of jobs out there. We're trying to find the bosses, but also, guess what? All these bosses, they're looking for some people to hire. But what kind of jobs out there? If you're new in the workforce, just coming back in, trying to figure out what you want to do, I got a potential opportunity. From time to time, the Hawaii Boss, on this program, we're going to highlight certain career paths that might be available for you. So as you're exploring different things, you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, and what do you want to do when you grow up, there is a lot of opportunity in a field that I'm fond of. I'm not one, but I'm very fond of, is the nursing field. So all of you wonder, okay, nursing, well, the rule out there was, anyway, we'll talk about it some more, but the funny thing I learned from nursing is if it's wet and it's warm and it's not yours, you don't touch it. So there's funny little nursing things. Other nursing things, just as a highlight, these nurses can talk about terrible wounds or something like that, and they're having lunch, and they're just sitting having lunch. And so just to let you know that nursing isn't for everybody. But I want to start with the ground floor, the staff that are going to make things happen in wherever you're at. When you're in a hospital, and usually in a clinic, not so much as in a nursing home or a care home or different things, the very challenging job of nursing assistant. Because nursing assistants, I don't remember that guy, whoever did the dirty jobs, what was his name? He was out there and he would do all these dirty jobs. I never saw him do a CNA job. Of course, there's HIPAA things, which is the privacy requirement, because you're dealing with people. We're not making widgets here. So a CNA is a frontline worker that requires a minimum amount of training. I mean, there's classes all over Honolulu. There's classes available where you can get this done in 2 weeks. You can get your initial training. Some of them have them in the evenings, so you can get your training in the evenings. Some of them on the weekends. And actually, I've decided, even though I've been doing this for a long time as a nursing home administrator, I thought I needed to figure out, again, to get back in touch with, when I first started out, I was a CNA, a nursing assistant. It's tough to remember all those years back because, now I'm getting old, but it's tough to kind of get a feel for the hard work that these folks do. And as a nursing home administrator and a professional in the healthcare field, I think it's important that we all understand at the ground level what our team does and how they engage the rest of the world. Particularly, they're the front line of our service as well. So let's talk about these guys a little bit. This was a start when I wanted to become a CNA. It was a start of what I wanted to become was a nurse. So I'll finish telling that story. I went to school. I was going to school down at BYU. I had transferred down there from community college to BYU. It's in Provo, Utah. And as I didn't end up graduating there. I ended up graduating from Weber State University. But again, I was excited to be. I initiated school in Southern Oregon, but I was glad to be in a little bit of a larger place and folks. I was already married, and that was the biggest challenge for me, is that my wife didn't work. We had a young family. I had a little bit of GI Bill, some college money coming in. That was helpful, but really, to make the bills at the end of the day, the nurse aid, the nurse training became difficult for me. And so that's sort of advanced, and we'll talk about those guys too. But first, let's talk about the ground floor of the CNAs. Now, look, when you're first starting out, right out of school, you take the class, you pass the test, you get certified, because there is a state exam that's required, and you have to show that you can do certain things, blood pressures, that you know about the body enough to be able to help in an emergency, CPR, different things, so you're able to do that. So starting wages are around, at the low end for a nursing assistant only, non-certified, maybe just a little bit of experience, is $13 or $14, maybe $15 an hour. However, once you get certified, there's still it depends on the facility and it depends on the needs. Hospitals usually pay more, and we'll get into the different environments that they work in. But in nursing homes right now, the average starting wage is about $17 an hour. So, that sounds good with the money. You can make sure that you can, again, be successful, and there's a career path along the way. However, it is hard work. So let's talk about it. So again, these CNAs, sometimes nursing aides, nursing assistants, they're called. They provide basic care for patients in hospitals and residents of long-term care facilities, post-acute facilities. Listen, we're doing cleaning, we're bathing the patients, we're helping them use a toilet, we're helping them dress, the basic stuff. But the hard stuff, if these guys are kneeling down, up and down, they turn, position, transfer patients between beds, wheelchairs to the toilet seat. I mean, this is sometimes hard work. They use lifts. It's become a lot safer than it used to be. It used to be that a back injury was a major problem for certified nursing assistants, but that's no longer the case when we now have safety in mind and OSHA coming down your throat. You really want to make sure that we are taking care of our people anyway. They help folks eat. If they're having a hard time seeing, they let them know where the food is and things, just taking things simplified. We want to try and get people at their most independent level possible. And even if that's in a nursing home, we want to try and help folks do things themselves, such as brush their teeth, as much of those things. But we provide the nursing assistants are there to provide assistance to help them be as independent as possible. So they're the front line. They're right on the front. They clean equipment, they change linens. Especially now with all this COVID and everything like that, they have to make sure that they're using the correct infection prevention requirements with the mask and the shield. The mask and the face shield. Again, with this pandemic, there's been so many different regulations and stuff that have bounced everybody around. But I think the schools right now are going through what the nursing homes and the other healthcare facilities went through last year, tracking and trending all of this type of stuff. So as a CNA, I started out and I was working and I wanted to become a nurse, but you had to start out as a CNA. That was kind of the career path, CNA, LPN, or LVN, and that stands for Licensed Practical Nurse or Licensed Vocational Nurse. It's a step up from a CNA. They can do a few more nursing things, but they can't do as much as a registered nurse. So that poses a challenge sometimes. However, I've met very many very skilled licensed LPNs, licensed practical nurses, and some that will run circles around a new RN coming out of school for sure, just because they have that experience. So these guys they come with a little bit more money. You go to another year of school after CNA, after you get your prerequisites done. So you get some prerequisites, maybe a year's worth of prerequisites, and then you have about a year and a half worth of schooling, and many schools provide it. Here, Capulani Community College, and there's different nursing programs because they know it's a continuous and in need job. We saw from the CNAs that there's going to be 11% growth over the next 10 years, and which is 11%, which is faster than average. 7% is most jobs are trending at 7%. So 12%, same thing for the LPNs here. So there's always going to be jobs out there. There is, of course, the extra training, and then there's an exam at the end. So if you're not an exam taker, it's something you can work on. But they have some ways that you can learn how to take a test better and do well. But what these licensed practical nurses do, they can do a little bit more. They can monitor the patients, the anatomy, physiology, the pathophysiology. They have a little more experience than the CNAs do. So they can understand these systems and how they're working. If there's a problem, they can start evaluating and so they do patient care, changing bandages, inserting catheters, a little bit more invasive type stuff they can do. They can also do the same thing as CNAs with, bathing, dressing, and help out. And CNAs, you better know that they want their nurses to help them out. I think sometimes nurses think as soon as they graduate from the CNA world, they don't have to do CNA work again. And I know that's why they probably went to school, was to make sure that they didn't have to do that again. But still, once a once a nurse, you should be able to do everything from the CNA up, right? So again, that's why I felt like it was important for me to go and get this training as a CNA to see what these guys are doing and the challenges that they're facing. They're also, listen, this is where the other challenge and the opportunity comes in for LPNs is they're doing a lot more documentation, okay? It takes a little bit more critical thinking to be a nurse, LPN or a registered nurse. Anyway, there's a ongoing battle between LPNs and RNs, and then of course there's an ongoing battle. There's a 2-year RN, meaning after your LPN you go to school for another year and a half, maybe 2 years, and you'll get your ADN, which is an associate's degree in nursing. But there's these nurses out there walking around with a BSN, which is a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and there's this competition between them, but there's a real quality consideration, at least that's been made as a marker. The BSN, or the Bachelor's Qualified Nurse, has been sort of set as a marker for some of these hospitals in order to get a certain amount of, or to get a certain certification as a magnet facility. They are required to have RNs, BSNs, as a certain percentage of their nurses. So again, there's some folks that literally we're seeing that's an important part for their success as a hospital. But listen, there's a lot of great people working out there in the nursing field. So LPN, RN, it just depends on the type of things that are needed. There's certain things that LPNs can't do, which is giving medication intravenously, or they can start an IV, but they can't do intravenous drips or push certain kind of medications through that IV, because there's certain things that can happen that they have to monitor for. Okay, so there's we're making a lot of progress here when we get CNAs, and this is just the nursing department. There's one more thing. It's called a restorative aid. And now these are a little bit more advanced trained CNAs, so I wouldn't say it's in between. It's just a CNA and LPN. It's just a different sort of role where their focus is the mobility and the functioning of folks, to restore them to, again, their most independent as possible. They may be getting folks up and walking, doing some certain stretching exercises. Because as we get older, our muscles can atrophy, and they get what they call a contracture. So again, we're there to help people and keep them at their best, most functioning ability. Now, I spoke to you earlier about the nurses, the registered nurses, and there's two different kinds: the registered nurse, ADN, and then so RN, ADN, and then there's BSN, RN. Okay, so then there's further than that too. They have, of course, nurse practitioners, which there's lots of stories I could tell you about their involvement in our life. But I'm specifically talking about most of the nursing roles that we have in our skilled nursing setting. So again, this whole team works closely together, LPNs, RNs, and CNAs, along with the restorative aid that helps to increase that functioning for folks. They're part of a larger team. They're a part of the team that assists in making sure that these folks get to their most independent level of care. So as a career path, folks, if you're looking at this career path, there's a few things that you should know. That to initiate and get into it is relatively easy. There are some challenges, however, particularly in Hawaii, as it relates to become a certified nurse assistant. Because this field is labor intensive, which means they're lifting and pulling, and here in Hawaii, well, in general, it's the healthcare field is mostly dominated by women in general. I don't have the stats right here, but and also here in Hawaii, a lot of folks who work in healthcare are from the Philippines, or who have maybe there be some language challenges. We have nurses from Korea, we have nurses from Japan, we have several. So the challenge becomes in any patient interaction where you're having this communication challenge. So that's a piece I think for Hawaii is an ongoing issue for entry-level certified nurses assistants as they're trying to find work. How do we help them? Because where most of the challenges happen because they're doing direct patient care, if there's a miscommunication with the patient, could be a bad customer service experience. And so we don't want that to happen. Also, someone who's a nurse who doesn't have a good grasp of the language in a way to be able to help they can talk about basic tasks and things like that, but being able to negotiate with someone and help them to maybe come off of being upset and bringing them down, it takes some expertise to be able to help solve those problems. And sometimes a language barrier becomes really too much. And so then what we see the tendency is that there's a pattern of avoidance that happens as for these nurses assistants because they can't really engage. So I think there may be some great opportunity in Hawaii, particularly for these entry-level positions, because they're willing to do that kind of work. The challenge is that the English preparation for that continues to be a challenge, and that's why many people sort of steer away from that, maybe move to housekeeping, maybe do some different types of things. I mean, there's a whole plethora of jobs that are available in a skilled nursing facility, and we can talk about each and every one of those, but for now, just the certified nurse assistant, the LPNs and the RNs. If we go on to Indeed right now, I want to tell you a little bit of something. I'm just going to do Honolulu, I'm going to look up Honolulu, Hawaii, and I'm going to look up CNA, okay? Right now, there are hundreds of jobs, and there were at least 50 that came out just today, okay? So we're talking there is a high level of need, but I'm from the nursing home field. So CNA, let's go back to CNAs. Let's talk about what they can do outside of the nursing home. Okay? They can be in hospitals. They can be out in home health or in hospice, helping those who are in need of assistance during their loved one's passing. They can be in mental health hospitals with specialized training. It's just the CNA training itself is just a solid foundational training that will, and if there's not too many things you need to stomach, everybody's worried about, okay, CNA, am I going to be able to do it? Listen, it was a tough when I when I went out and started doing clinicals, and I was responsible for this little section of the nursing home. And I remember, listen, the first time I saw grandma, not my grandma, but grandma there after a shower and needed to be changed and cleaned, I realized that, okay, I'm not in Kansas anymore, and there's going to be some things I'm going to have to relearn about my approach and that, but as far as dealing with older people and also for those poor ladies who have to have gentlemen assist them as they get older or other ladies and they're just their most intimate needs. And so that's why this is such a critical role for us, not only for nursing homes, but for the healthcare in general. We have to have a huge cadre of these types of individuals going in there and working and lifting and pulling and consoling and showing compassion and being able to face an upset family member or being able to smile with a family member or share joy. There are many rewards like that, being able to see someone improve in their health and return home to their most independent level possible. So there's lots of joys and seeing a lot of, we're not selling cell phones. I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have gone in and started selling cell phones. So, this is a truly service-oriented, people-oriented type of role. And we'll explore on Hawaii Boss. We'll go out there and we'll explore, hey, maybe there's carpenters out there we want to talk to. And so what's it like being a carpenter? Hey, if you want to be an electrician, what are the types of things that are going on to be, what career path you need to become an electrician? So I'm going to continue to explore these different things. Maybe there's a pathway out there for you, Hawaii Boss crew listening in. Maybe there's something out there that excites you and you want to find out more about that. So why don't you comment below, let us know if there's a career path or career field that you'd like to explore more about. Or you want to be an attorney, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a garbage man. I don't care. We can find out about it. What the garbage men in Seattle make, $105,000 or something a year. Some of these guys with overtime and stuff like that. It's a deadly job, dirty job. So listen, there's work out there for you, people, and we're going to find it. We're going to find something that fits you, and by the time we're done, you'll be in a job that you'll like, that you can have a career with, spend your life with, and enjoy. And listen, you may not like CNA or working in healthcare, but it might help you to explore some different things you haven't seen and give you a different perspective. So listen, all you listening out there, I hope that you're doing what you love, because if you do that, it's not work at all. And until next time, aloha.
Make sure to subscribe to Hawaii Boss and follow us on social media at Hawaii Boss Podcast at the links in the description. We'll see you soon in the boss's office.